My name is Lüning, Horst Lüning, and this is my son Ben. And today we have a live tasting with a range of Dalmore whiskies.
Mm-hmm. It's very, very nice to have the Dalmore here on our cask because the Dalmore is quite a premium distillery. And these three whiskies here are really excellent. I think one of them we already gave an award. I think it was the 15-year-old we
Yep.
did give an award.
Yes.
It wasn't just extraordinary, very, very, very nice whiskey indeed.
So today we have three Dalmore, which are not the normal or the best-selling ones. First is the 12-year-old, but not the normal one, but a sherry cask, matured whiskey or finished whiskey, the 12-year-old sherry cask, priced around mid to upper 60s. Then the second one is the 15-year-old, which is quite, well, the premium in the standard range. And that is around close to 80. And the last one is the Portwood finish, which is a no age statement whiskey and is priced as well, I think, in the 60s. Yeah, somewhere. So they are, from the pricing, quite premium, and from the appearance of the bottle as well. There are boxes with every of these bottles, so we always have some damaged boxes here. So we use the bottles from the damaged boxes because it's not so good to sell with those damaged boxes. So we spare some money. Yeah, typically we talk about 5 minutes about everything and nothing until everybody is adjusted to the sound level. And so first, probably we give the next date for the next tasting, which will be on November the 12th.
Yes, and it will be an Aberfeldy live tasting. Yeah.
And today we will have those three and give you a little bit of background to the Dalmore. We show pictures as well.
There's a lot of background this time.
But, yeah.
There's a lot of background.
And prepared, or got prepared some from the regie over there. Yeah.
Yeah. So let me start off with, where is the Dalmore distillery? We have here our map of Scotland, and in the south we have the lowlands, in the west we have Islay, and above that we have the Highlands, and on the very, very north we have the island of Orkney, and then we have the big red is the Highlands, and the part of the Highlands is the Speyside. And if we go on into the Speyside and move west, there is the big city of Inverness.
Big city.
It turned into a big city. It has now more than 100,000 people in there.
100,000. Okay.
It's growing. It's a growing city within Scotland.
Yeah.
And there's a bay, and at that bay you find the city of Inverness. And if you drive 20 minutes north of Inverness, you will come to the Dalmore distillery. So that's where we are talking about the distillery. And distillery is all about a stag. And the stag is because the descendant from the distillery was the Colin of Kintel. Colin of Kintel was his name, and he was the chief of the clan Mackenzie, and he saved King Alexander III from a charging stag. And there's a nice painting about that. And here we see the painting, and on the left with the spear we have Colin of Kintel, and I think the one at the bottom in the middle is the king, but doesn't have a crown.
Very unfavorable. Yeah.
It's a bit strange, that picture. And he slew that charging stag and saved King Alexander III of Scotland from this charging stag. And because of that, he was honored, and he was now allowed to have the 12-ended charging, or the 12-ended royal stag on his emblem of his clan, which was then carved into a stone. And we can see, can we have the stone? And here we see the stone with the stag and the 12 ends on top of that. Yeah, and you had a...
Yeah, there's a small tale about the ends of the. Here you see the head of the stag with the ends, and how do you call the or count the ends? So there are sometimes very small knobs, and they say this is an end, and no
Discussions amongst hunters.
in the evening with a whiskey at the fire after your hunt, and when you have a ring where you have your keys on,
A key.
and if that places on the end and keeps staying, then this end counts. If it falls down, it's no end. So I heard that from a hunter in
So
New Zealand.
this is how you count the ends of
The
a
stag.
stag. I think that the 12-ender is kind of the typical biggest one, but there are bigger ones.
There are bigger ones, yes.
Yes, there are bigger ones.
Yeah,
Okay.
and a stag has to be very, very strong, because the stag loses his, how it's called,
Antlers.
every year. So it has to grow it every year again.
Ah, okay. So it has
So
to
it
be a
shows
really
power.
power and strong male that grows that big antlers. Ah, okay. Interesting.
I do have a lot of hair. Yeah.
Probably same thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was like the introduction of the brute far away history and the lore of the stag and where it comes from. And now let's start off with a whiskey.
Yeah. So if you're pouring, I have to to recognize that there will be more in my glass. No, please not. Thank you.
Okay. So, the 12-year-old is I think triple cask maturation. It started off with American oak cask, and then it was finished in Oloroso and PX sherry casks.
So PX sherry is a different sherry.
Oh wait, did a mistake. It's a mixture between 3 of these casks.
Yeah, and these PX casks have a very sweet sherry.
Oh no,
And,
wait. The finish is a mix, and
Yeah.
the other one is before that.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So and this finishing period in those Oloroso and PX sherry casks was for a period of between 18 and 24 months, so 1.5 up to 2 years, which is quite long.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, finish for 24 months is really long.
So what do we have? I have a very, very typical orange note, which is part of the citrus notes of the northern Highlands. And this turning into oranges is very characteristic for Dalmore. And this is sweet, caramelized oranges, orangeade, and a hint of cask influence, a hint of spiciness. Very round, some caramel, vanilla appearing, very comfortable. And this one has 43%, and the normal 12-year-old Dalmore has only 40% ABV. So this has 3% ABV more than the normal Dalmore has.
So it's a fruity one, and the beauty about it is it's a mixture between fresh fruit and dried fruit. So you have your plums, but you also have a bit of a orange juice note. So it's really a juicy thing going on, but it reminds me a little bit of Christmas, of a little bit spiciness of cloves, and maybe the oranges are peeled and put on the radiator, and that gives you a very nice smell in the room, and that reminds me a little bit of that.
Yeah, what I forgot to tell is first is sherry.
Yeah.
So I started with the oranges, but sherry is dominant. Of
Cherry
course,
is dominant.
is dominant. Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Slange. Mm-hmm. And then spiciness kicks in with a light ginger note, really intense, turning over into a light bitterness, which I didn't have the first time. Now I feel that bitterness. So this coffee note, that's strange. First time I didn't have that. Yeah.
Mm.
And some cinnamon.
Mm.
Really.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
It's when you have it in your mouth, it's nice, it's sweet, it's fruity, dried fruit, a lot of sherry. But when you swallow it, here comes a bit more spiciness, the cloves, maybe a little bit of cinnamon, a lot of oak coming through. So the finish is off into an oaky, bitter sweetness. Very nice, very rounded off, but still very sweet whiskey. The PX is definitely present.
Mm-hmm. So the official writings are caramelized orange, ginger, and sultanas. I didn't have those.
Mm-hmm.
No, laced with honey. No, I didn't have the honey as well. No. On the palate, dark chocolate and crushed almonds with a dusting of cinnamon. Crushed almonds. Finishing note, sweet mangoes, panna cotta. This is vanilla cream. And lemon sponge cake.
But still very intense. It's a really intense one. Okay, it has 43%, but I know whiskeys that are less intense with 43%.
Yeah.
But still a very, very nice whiskey.
What do they say? Favorite bottle.
Whiskey Lovers Society, looks like they have the bottle in hand. No honey for me, and the oak is a bit overwhelming. Yeah, the oak is strong, especially in the aftertaste. When you just have it in your mouth, it's, I think, a bit overwhelmed by the sweetness and the fruits, but in the end, it's really, really strong and interesting.
David C. says Horst is the Dalmore, a blended whiskey. So this is a novice to the theme because it's a Dalmore with an A, and it's not a whiskey but a whiskey. It's a Scotch one, and no, it's not blended. If you see it, it's one distillery called Dalmore, and all the whiskey is from that Dalmore distillery, but they mix casks from the same distillery, and this is not called a blend. Even when the person who mixes those casks or writes the recipe for that, which is typically Richard Patterson, they are called master blenders inside the malt whiskey distillery, but they just blend the single malts into a single malt. Yeah, the single cask into a single malt. Yeah.
So let's continue with the distillery and where the distillery lies. I've told you about the bay, and at the tip of the bay there is Inverness. You can see here at the middle and a bit lower part of the picture. And if you go north of that, you will find the distillery, where we have that little pot still pin looking thing there. And on the side of that we have a red line, and that red line is a river. And the river is called, where do we have? The river is called Everon. And Everon is a big river, and they take the process water for the production there. The process water is the water that you use for the cooling of the condensers, or cooling of
The Lomond stills.
Or the cooling of the mash tun or something like that. That's the process water. And it was founded in 1839 from Alexander Matheson, and that was a bit of a dodgy fella because he made his money in the illegal opium trade in Asia. And with illegal, it's I think the British didn't consider it illegal, but the locals considered it illegal. Yeah. So
this
he made
gave the opium wars between Britain and China.
Yeah.
So
This escalated there, and he made his money with these with the opium trade and probably also the war. And now we have a picture of the distillery, and as the descendants of the Mackenzie clan took over the distillery in 1867, the distillery got the royal stag as their emblem. As you can see, there is a stag on the warehouse on the left, and now every bottle is has a stag on it, and I can show that bottle to you. You can see it here. And back in the days, they only had it painted on there, I think with foil or something, and now we have it actually stuck on there, glued on there. But this is not silver, this is plastic.
There is the better ones, I think, starting with either the 18-year-old or the King Alexander III.
I think the King Alexander.
They have a metal one which is just coated with silver, and the very, very old ones, so 62 years old and whatever is out there, they have a real silver emblem on it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So now the distillery is now 100 years in the hands of the Mackenzie clans, and there was a bit of a downtime during the early 20th century. So in the 1917, the British Navy started testing deep sea mines. That was the height of the First World War, the Great War as they called it back then. And they tested it in that bay, and that bay is with tides. Here you can see the bay. With tides, the water rises and it comes very close to the distillery. So in 1920, there was an explosion of one of these deep sea mines, and that actually had a big effect on the distillery. Destroyed parts of it. Parts of it took fire, and
it burned down.
It was a destruction of the
collateral damage
of the Royal British Navy. And the distillery was rebuilt, and they restarted production, and it became pretty successful over the time. And in the year 1966, they increased the capacity of the distillery by building 4 new stills. So they had already 4 stills, and they put in 8 more stills, and
4 more stills.
4 more stills. So they had 8 in the end, and now that way they became the 25th largest distillery in the world. Not whiskey distillery, but distillery in the world. So they were really a big number back in the days, in the 60s or 70s. Yeah. So that was a bit about the history of the distillery, and now we start off with the 15 years.
And this 15-year-old, as you said already, got a Whisky.com award for one of the best whiskies tasted in that month. There is this small fly.
Maybe it gets another one.
No.
So it was matured for 12 years in bourbon casks, and then it was finished in sherry casks, and these sherry casks are even defined. They are Matusalem bias casks, and you tell it better. I have never been to Spain or Portugal yet.
So there's a very big bodega in Jerez, in the southwest of Spain, where the sherry is produced, and this is called Matusalem bias. And they have several or multiple different casks for this Apostolus and Amoroso sherry casks. So this whiskey has the chance to mature as the 12-year-old in Oloroso and Paix sherry casks. They have Apostolus and Amoroso sherry casks that gives a different aroma to the whiskey. And it was not only 1.5 to 2 years finished, but full 3 years finished. So this delivers extremely more taste of those sherry casks.
Mm-hmm.
And smelling this is a lot more complex. And deep, dark, a lot of sherry fruits, deep, oxidized, old, cinnamon, and behind that the orange juice of the distillery character,
Mm-hmm.
and a little bit of taste of a damp dunnage warehouse.
Mm-hmm. I'm beginning to feel that the orange is really a bit of a distillery character. Maybe it's the style of all the maturations, but you always have a bit of that orange character in there.
Not the maturation, it's the stills.
It's probably the stills, and this time it's a mixture between a little bit of a juicy orange, but also a lot of zest and a bit of sweetness from the peel of the orange. A little bit of a dark chocolate thing going on, and also much more spiciness, like the cloves, the ginger, the nutmeg, that comes on a lot stronger in the 15-year-old.
So the 15-year-old has just 40% ABV, not the 43 of the 12-year-old. And for me, it's as strong as the 12-year-old is in the nose.
Mm.
Yeah.
A little bit stronger for me. Okay.
Slange?
Slange?
Mm-hmm. Full sherry sweetness, and as soon as you swallow, the spiciness of the cask going over into, there's still the oranges going over to a sweeter tangerine tone, and cladding your mouth, oakiness, and as you said, those Christmas spiciness
Mm-hmm.
is there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Full.
I find it definitely stronger than the Dalmore 12, but also it's not as sweet and fruity. Much more intense with spiciness, bittersweetness, chocolate, combined with a nice dried fruit character. That's not overwhelming. It's a side note, not a silent side note, but a strong side note of a nice sherry tone in there. But the oak, the spiciness, the character, it's like Christmas spices, but a very spicy Christmas cake, I would say. Mm.
So there are official notes here. The aroma, orange marmalade, so a little bit of bitterness for the marmalade, cinnamon and nutmeg. No, I didn't have the nutmeg. On the palate, mandarin, so that's tangerine, vanilla, ginger, and crushed apples. I didn't have the crushed apples. I had the ginger, very short. Yeah, finishing notes, caramelized orange and rich dark chocolate. Not that rich. A little bit dark, yes. The vanilla, yeah, I have it now.
Mm. Oh, yeah, I know why we gave it the Whisky.com award. And it has a bit of a roundness to it as well. It's
15 years of age.
15 years of age. It just has 43%, so it's
No, 40.
43%. Yeah, and it's that gives it just a easy feel of enjoying it, combined with that nice spiciness, that good oak, that sherry character. That's what you want of a whiskey.
In the long aftertaste, now I have sherry and but oakiness and a light ginger spiciness in the long aftertaste.
Mm-hmm.
That's intense.
Nice.
Yeah. What's next? The inside of the distillery.
Yeah, I think you do that because I've never been there.
So I had been there in 1995, so it's quite a long time ago. Some pictures are from Dalmore themselves. Some of them are from me. This is the old malt mill, which is used to malt the mill the malt. Yeah, of course. And they had their own maltings. They used their own maltings. And in the 1950s, 1956, they changed from their own maltings to celadine boxes, which are concrete boxes, 20 meters long, 3 meters wide, 2 meters or 1.5 meter deep. And in that, the malt is wetted, mixed with water, and then it is turned by screws and electric motors, and the machine is going through back and forth. So it's an automatic malting process where you do not have to turn the malt by shovel. And that was then stopped in 1982. This was the time of the big British recession, which started in 1979 with Margaret Thatcher coming to power, and the Iron Lady, and that turned to a recession, and then they had to stop this expensive process, and the malt they used to get it from big industrial maltings, and as you said, Glenard is not far away, so probably they get their malt from Glenard. And then this is going through the mash tun down to the wash bags, and here you see 8 old wash bags made from wood, from pine wood, Oregon pine probably. And this is only part what you see. The wash bags are much taller. There's another story below this, another floor here in between. So it's 5 times below the floor than it's showing up the floor. So they are producing the wash from the wort by fermenting it, and from there it goes to the stills, and the still house is on the next picture. Yeah, there you can see how dense the pot stills are packed into that still house, and so it is no it is clear that when something started to burn in there, it will burn immediately everything. So that mine did its job, and the construction was a little bit faulty as well. And here you can see really different shapes of stills. And here on the right-hand side, you see a Lomond still. That means the neck of the still has a second a tube around it in which water flows, so that the still is cooled on the neck, that the reflux is stronger than with a typical still. Then you have a reflux bowl as well below that. So this still really distills, gives a very fine alcohol. On here you have the another Lomond still. This is the name for this type of still.
And the thing is, you have a tubular tube at the neck. Is the neck also tubular?
No. It's a typical triangular or trapezoidal shape. Yeah, so they have different shapes and are able to produce different alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and here you see the wash still with the cooking wash in it, and you have to be very careful not to overcook this pot still, otherwise the apprentice has to clean the condensers, which is very tedious work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is one of the warehouses, the bigger ones with 2 stories, but with a clay floor, stamped clay floor. And if you look inside these warehouses, you see a lot of different casks piled up. This is the showpiece for the people visiting the distillery. And here you see the courtyard where the new casks are waiting. In the front, these are typically hogsheads, and in the back you see the sherry casks. And on the next one you see the maturing sherry casks in the front, and probably the hogsheads in the back on top, 3 rows high. And here you can see this is one of the lower dunnage warehouses. In the middle between the casks you can see the stamped floor, then the concrete way in between so that you can roll the casks better. And in the back, 3 stories or 3 rows high, are the hogsheads, and then the roof already starts. So they have several Danish warehouses on the premise, and they are able to store, I think, 60, 70,000 casks in those warehouses. Yeah. And the last one, here you see those Methuselah. In former times I called them Methuselah. He's a very old person, yeah. It's Methuselah, and on the right you see Gonzales Byers, which are the proprietors of that distillery. Bodega, sherry bodega.
Yeah. So, but now we switch from sherry to port.
Yes. And I saw there's an Antonio D from southern Portugal. Do you Lünings drink sherry? Not regularly, but from time to time. But I was in vacation. I just came back the day before yesterday from Portugal, and also from southern Portugal. So we missed there. And days before, I was in the Douro Valley, where the port wine is produced, and there we had some wonderful red wines. And every hotel we came in, you got a tawny port bottle, a small one, in your room with 20% ABV. And this port wine is produced as the sherry is produced. You're fermenting the wine quite high. So one bottle we ordered in the restaurant had 15% ABV on a natural way by yeast. And then you add brandy produced from the wine up to 20%, and then you get these dry ports, those finos, where the warehouses and the producers are at the town of Porto, at the mouth of the river Douro. But they also have ports which they stop the fermentation before the sugar is completely turned into alcohol, and then they put the brandy in to bring it up to 20%, and those are typically also those tawny ports, and this port would finished also in tawny port, I think, wasn't it that? Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, Tony Port.
Yeah.
The thing is, it started off with American oak casks, and then you take the batch and you split it. One keeps on being matured in the American oak casks, and the other one goes in the Tony Port pipes and is matured there.
The difference between a sherry cask and a port pipe, you have in the name, it's a pipe. So the port wine cask is typically smaller in diameter, but longer to get those 600 liters, which are typically in those pipes. And the sherry cask is typically has a bigger diameter and is not that tall or long if it's lying on the floor. I'm not smelling on the cork because the bottles are open and I did it just an hour ago. Offley Tawny, 10 years old. Montreal, Canada says hello. Edredal, Glenfarclas. Folks, we're still live.
Yep. So what you got in your glass?
Dalmore. Yeah, very, very fruity, sweet, red berries, Roman Lavoie, 20 CA dollar, Canadian dollars. Thank you very much. Oranges as well. This is the distillery character. So these yeasts produce some citrus notes, and the stills are fortifying those to oranges, and a little toffee note in it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot sweeter than the 15-year-old, but very different to the 12-year-old.
Yeah, it has. I forgot to tell. It's 46.5 ABV, so it's stronger.
It's stronger, and the thing is, it does have a bit of a bit of an influence of that American oak, so a little bit of a bourbon character. For me, not that much vanilla, but some of the caramel is still in there, and combined with a bit of a mandarin, tangerine, maybe oranges flavor of the distillery, and it's a nice mixture between fruity and a little bit of oak, a little bit of spice, but more on the fruity side.
Yeah, I get caramel and toffee and vanilla as well, but it took quite a time to get it. Yeah. Slange?
Slange?
So this remembers me to the tawny port I had in that hotel. Really, that's the first. The second is juiciness, fruitiness, orange juice, candied orange, little ginger, little spiciness. What a big mouthful, and these 46.5 just drives it into your tongue and to the roof of your mouth. Strong.
Also, again, very fruity, especially at the beginning, with a lot of juicy flavors, maybe a little berries even in there as well. A nice port whiskey, but it's still, when you come more to the finish, you begin to get more of the oak. You get more of a little bit of a bitter note as well. I would associate it with coffee. The guys in the office, they just started switching from normal coffee to filtered coffee, and it smells a little bit or feels a little bit like that. I don't drink any coffee, so I just associate it from the smell.
I just had a cup of coffee to stay awake, and I can tell you there's no coffee in here. Not a little bit.
Probably just a note or association for me. I have to say I can't really talk about coffee because I just don't drink any of them. But I would, maybe it's just a very bitter cacao then. Maybe that way, or a very dark chocolate.
Yeah, have a look at the package. What they tell here, is it the right one? Yes. So we always take the bad card boxes for opening the bottles because they're not so good to sell. The aroma: sweet red berries, Seville oranges, plummy fruits, and sticky toffee pudding. On the palate: nectarines, creamy caramel, roasted chestnuts. No, I hadn't those. And Java coffee. Probably had these chocolate coins with Java.
Yeah, like in that direction.
Yeah. And finishing notes: rich plums, sultanas, sanguinello, blood oranges, and macerated sherries. These macerated sherries, probably the higher alcohol, gives you this cooler, lighter flavor, which lead to those sherries. Yeah.
So this is gonna be difficult to put it in a ranking. So anybody who has their whiskeys on hand and has tried them, let's do a ranking. So you may smell them, you might try them again, but write in them the direction. If you had, let's say, if you were like the 15 first, you write 2. Then you like the 12 best. Second best is then the number 1, and then the number 3 would be Dalmore.
Or other round one. If the Portwood is the best, you write 3, and then you write probably 2 and 1. So,
yeah.
But I think we do not have so many visitors today on the channel.
I think there were 1 or 2 who had them.
Yeah.
So write it in. So for me, it's still the one that I had in a German taste as well.
Yeah. No, my changed.
You switched.
So I had a prejudice, a bias, because we had this 15-year-old, and this was got a reward from Whisky.com. So for me, this was the best. But I kept in mind the portwood, and portwood is one of my favorites. So I said, well, probably that's the best one. And when I had the first sip of those three, it was just 1, 2, 3. But now, after having built up a flavor in my mouth over a longer time, I changed my mind, and now it's 3, 2, 1. What a shame.
Yeah, I still will stay with 1, 2, 3. It's just for me. It's the part of the day where I was just longing for a really juicy, nice, sweet sherry whiskey. So that's why the Dalmore came in first. In terms of how good they are, they're all three really, really good.
Yeah.
There's one guy who had them. He was 1, 3, 2. The flavor. Flavor.
And
the taste is 3, 2, 1. Like you.
Yeah. So what I think is when the taste built up over the tasting in German language an hour ago, then the feeling in my mouth was so intense, the aftertaste, that the smoother, more juicy, more fruity Dalmore 12 sherry cask didn't come over that. So it needed a stronger one. So now the portwood had been stronger and got over that, the 15 as well, and the 12-year-old not that much.
Tiger Mode also had them. It's for him it's the 2, 1, 3, so it's 15, 12, and then port. Premium makes it hard to decide. Then we have 2, 3, 1. 15 port and 12-year-old. So yeah,
It's
like
quite
in the
mixed,
German taste,
yeah.
it's quite mixed. They are very close together. This time we don't really have a clear winner.
Yeah, the price range is from 66.90 up to 79.90. So it's a higher priced range. Dalmore does not produce so much whiskey that they have to lower the price to get the whiskey to the people. So they are able to rise the prices because the limit is the production and the maturation, I think. But what we have to say, they have whiskey matured in older ages, and just a few no age statement whiskeys they had to add. But it's good that they have a range of older ones, which I find good for a distillery which sells so much whiskey.
Yeah, it's a really good distillery, and I'm looking forward. Maybe I can visit it in the hopefully not so distant future.
Danny and Gillies, hello
is in
from
Scotland.
rainy Scotland.
Okay.
Yeah, it just stopped raining here, and we had a half day of sunshine. Cigar malt, yes, the cigar malt from Jibu 1983. The cigar malt had been very, very famous in the beginning. It was quite cheap, and we sold a lot of that 20 years ago, and then it was gone, and today it's back again, but it's expensive. Yeah.
Okay, so let me do a little bit of an advertisement on our own behalf, because we do have more live tastings coming up, and the next live tasting will be on the 12th of November 2021, so in about a month, at 8 p.m. Central European Standard Time, I think winter time then. But if you want to go when it is in your time region, because we all live in different time zones, you go to Whisky.com/live. There will be the video up in the next days, and when you click on it, then it will tell you when it will air in your region. And also, if you're on a desktop, on the side you will find more dates when there will be the next live tastings. There was a bit of a shift. The Aberfeldy live tasting was planned for December. Now we shifted it to the front, and the tasting in December is not quite decided yet. And there will be tastings in December, just after Christmas, beginners live tasting and advanced live tasting. So yeah.
Damith Patirana, 12:40 a.m. Hello from Sri Lanka. Yeah, very good.
Well, 12:40 a.m. is
in the night.
Is in
short
the night.
After midnight, yeah.
Isn't that called 0044 or something? I don't know. Okay, so Do you want to do more questions, or should we close it up?
Look at that. They focus on the Sige malt, and this is really expensive in the world. Yeah.
Have you got any Christmas videos? Yeah, well, there will be Christmas videos. There are always Christmas videos. We're a whiskey shop. We have to milk it.
Hi, Sudhanshu Gupta. Hi, love from India. Yeah.
So
that's it for today.
That's it for today.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you very much for watching. Keep on going to Whisky.com/live. There will be more live tastings coming up. And thank you very much for watching, and see you next time.